Now, the other thing we did in class today, we talked about exponents and roots. So I wanted to go over that because I think this is the part that's going to give you, be a little tricky with your homeworks. But if you take your time and just remember a couple of rules, it shouldn't be too bad. So we have 3 squared, 3 cubed, 3 to the 4th, and a negative 3 to the 4th. Have to remember, this was one of the math tips that I had you write down, that the base sticks to the exponent. That is something you can write down in your math tips part of your notebook. The base sticks to the exponent. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that 3 squared, this is the base. The base is the larger number. The exponent is the small number. 3 is the base, this 3 is the exponent. 3 is the base, 4 is the exponent, and so on. So we will get back to this base sticks to the exponent in one moment, but I want to start over here. 3 squared means that you are multiplying 3 by itself 2 times. Be very careful. 3 squared is not 6. I'm going to even write that down. It is not 6. It is not 3 times 2. That's not what it means. It means you take the base, which is 3, and multiply it by itself this many times. 3 times 3 is 9. You take the base, which is a 3, multiply it by itself 3 times. 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. So 3 to the 3rd power is 27. Following that same example, 3 to the 4th power means you take the base, 3, and multiply it by itself 4 times. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27, times 3 is 81. So 3 to the 4th is 81. Now we get to where I said that the base sticks to the exponent. When we come to this problem, we see they have a negative sign out front. And we have to know, does that mean negative 3 multiplied by itself 4 times? Or does that mean the opposite of 3 multiplied by itself 4 times? If we go by the rule that the base, which is a 3, sticks to the exponent, which is the 4, then we know we have to look at this first. We have to look at what is inside the box first. They stick together. So 3 to the 4th, as we saw over here, is 81. And then we put the negative sign in front of it. So this negative 3 to the 4th equals negative 81. If we put the negative 3 in parentheses and then raise it to 4, then we have this whole number, negative 3, multiplied by itself 4 times. So we have negative 3 times negative 3. Let's put parentheses, that's a little more clear. Times negative 3 times negative 3. So 4 negatives multiplied by each other makes a positive. So this is negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, times negative 3 is negative 27, times negative 3 is 81. So this equals 81. So do you see the difference? This problem equals negative 81, and this problem equals 81, because you have to remember the base sticks to the exponent. So we're going to go ahead and move on to a problem that looks like this. If we have a negative 3 to the 3rd minus a negative 3 in parentheses squared plus in parentheses a negative 2 squared, we're going to see what this equals. And we have to be very careful to watch the signs. Let's start with one thing at a time so it doesn't get overwhelming. We're just going to look at this part right here, the negative 3 cubed. Remembering that the base sticks to the exponent, we know that that means 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. So this part is 27, and we still have that negative sign. So this is negative 27. Now we're going to subtract. So we'll move the subtraction sign down. We're going to subtract this expression right here. This expression right here means negative 3 times itself 2 times. So a negative 3 times a negative 3, which equals 9. So we are going to subtract this number, which is 9. Now we're going to add. See how carefully I'm watching the signs? You have to make sure that you do that or you'll make a mistake. Now we have this, which is negative 2, multiplied by itself twice. So we have a negative 2 times a negative 2. A negative times a negative is a positive, so that equals positive 4. So now we have minus 27 minus 9 plus 4. Minus 27, take away 9 more, is negative 36. And then you add 4 to negative 36, you end up with negative 32. So that's how you would evaluate this expression. This equals negative 32. And just take it one step at a time like I showed you, and you'll be just fine. And taking very good care that you watch the signs. Now, when we talk about square roots, which are related to exponents, we get a symbol that looks like this. This is the square root of 64. You have to ask yourself, what times itself equals 64? And that would be 8, because 8 times 8 is 64. You'll sometimes see something that looks like this with a little 4 in it, or another number. This means the fourth root of 16. So you have to be careful. This does not mean 16 divided by 4. That would give you an answer of 4, and it is not 4. That is not the right answer. What this means is something multiplied by itself 4 times, I'll make little boxes so we can see this, equals 16. So the trick is to think of a number that is multiplied by itself 4 times would equal 16. If you thought that it was 4 in the beginning, and you went ahead and tried that, and ended up with 4 times 4 times 4, you would see that that was wrong, because already at 4 times 4 you get 16, and you still have to multiply a whole nother 16. So you know that it's not 4. That's too big. Let's try another number. Let's try 2. 2 multiplied by itself 4 times does equal 16, because you have 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So the fourth root of 16 equals 2. And that's what that means. Let's try another. This is called the cube root. The cube root of negative 27. All that means is that something multiplied by itself 3 times equals a negative 27. Something multiplied by itself equals a negative 27. We know that it needs to be a negative number, so we're going to put the negative sign in there. A negative times a negative is a positive, times a negative is a negative. So then we have to think, what times what times what would equal 27? So I'm going to show you, it's negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9, and a positive 9 times a negative 3 is a negative 27. So the cube root of negative 27 equals negative 3. So that's how you would write that answer. One last thing, if we have the opposite or a negative sign, the square root of 81, first of all, you just find the square root of 81, which is 9, because 9 times 9 is 81. So you have the square root of 81 is 9, then you have the negative sign in front of it. So the negative square root of 81 is negative 9. Well, that's how you would do that one. One last thing concerning exponents that I want to show you. You will have in your homework something that looks like this. X squared times z cubed times y. And it will ask you to find x squared z cubed y if we have 3 things. If x equals 2, and z equals 3, and y equals negative 2. So the way you figure that out is you have to put these numbers in for these letters. It's like a code. So we have x squared. What do we have for x? X equals 2. So we're starting off with 2 squared. We'll put that in parentheses to keep it by itself. Now we're going to do z cubed. We'll also put this in parentheses to keep it by itself. Z is 3, so we have 3 cubed. And now we have y, which is negative 2. So now we simply just need to multiply these all together. We know that our answer is going to be a negative number because we have a positive times a negative, which will equal a negative. 2 times 2. 2 times itself is 4. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So that's the next number in our series. And then we have to multiply that by a -2. So we have 27 times 4, which at this point, if you wanted to use your calculator for that, that is totally fine. 4 times 2 is 8, so that's 108. And then we have 108 times -2, which gives us a -216. So the answer, if it asks for, what is x squared z cubed y if x equals 2, z equals 3, and y equals -2? You simply fill in the answers, and the answer to that would be -216. There's one last thing I would like to show you about exponents, and that is what happens when you multiply numbers that have the same bases, like this. What would x cubed times x squared times x cubed be? Well, as you'll find out, when you multiply numbers that have the same base, you simply add the exponents. If the bases are the same, then you can add the exponents. It gets a little tricky, but I want to show you how, if you forget that rule, you can figure it out yourself. If you take a look and see what this really means. What does x cubed mean? It means x times itself 3 times. This means this. Now we're multiplying this number by x squared. X squared means x times itself 2 times. So now that equals that. Now we have another x cubed, which if you remember, it means x times itself 3 times. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 x's being multiplied by themselves. So that answer would be x to the 8th. And the way you got that was you add these exponents. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 3 is 8. So you can do it either, you can write it all out, which takes a long time, or you can just note that to multiply numbers that have the same bases, you simply add the exponents. So one last problem that you'll see is something that looks like this: x squared, y squared, x to the 5th, y to the 3rd. And they want you to simplify that. You can only add the exponents if the bases are the same. So we can do the base of 6 and we can do the base of y. The base of, I said 6, I meant to say x. The base x, we have x squared times x 5th. Remember, we add the exponents if the bases are the same. So x squared times x 5 is x to the 7th. We can now do that with the y's. The bases are the same, the y's are the same. Now we can just add the exponents. Y squared times y cubed is y to the 5th. So that is how you would simplify this problem. I think that's all we need to know about exponents today.